This is the treehouse that I made when I was 16. Well, you might want to call it more of a tree platform, because there's still no walls, but I like it like that. It keeps it open to the rest of the backyard and the lake, which are the main reasons why I go to my cottage. I built it with some trees that we had cut down on our property as the main supporting beams, some planks that were lying around as the joists, and some fence boards from the local timber mart for the decking itself. This project is just one of many that I've done in my life of 20 years. I've always loved the process of going from an idea in my head to designs on a paper to eventually having it exist in real life.
And it hasn't just been tree houses, which I've made 3. I've given a shot at leatherworking, blacksmithing, painting, furniture making. I even built somewhat of a raft out of a barrel that my buddy and I found. We called it the Bug.
These projects represent the ideas that graduated from drawings in my notebook to actual reality. However, there have been plenty of ideas that never left the page. I've filled up countless notebooks with the random projects that float around in my head, but there's always been one that stood out, and that's building a tiny house. Alright, this dream of designing and building tiny houses, or mobile homes in general, was a key motivator in my decision to study architectural engineering at the University of Waterloo. Now, I love my program, and I've decided this summer that I would use everything I've learned up to this point and tackle the goal that I've had for so long. So this summer, I looked into it. I only have 2 months left before I'm back at school, and after a deep dive into the Ontario Building Code, I realized that in order to do it properly, with the right permits and certifications, I would need more time. But I didn't want to give up there. So I asked myself, what's something that I can build right now that will put me one step closer towards my goal? It's no secret that COVID-19 has drastically changed the way we work. A large portion of us have moved to working from home, and this is a change that a lot of us weren't ready for. I know my parents weren't. Because they were used to working at an actual office building, we never included space for a proper office when designing our house. This has left my dad working at the dining room table and my mom working upstairs in a room on what is supposed to be a bedside table. So if you're anything like us, your current workspace is less than ideal because you don't have proper space in your house for an at-home office. But have you thought about your backyard? Here we are in another one of the tree houses I've built. Again, probably more of a tree platform, but I mean, this one has 2 walls, so it's closer. In most places, you can build something in your backyard without the need for a building permit, given that it's under or around 100 square feet. Where I live, in Ontario, that number is 108 square feet. The only other requirement to build in your backyard without a building permit is that it doesn't have plumbing. You don't need plumbing to work at a desk. There's definitely something to be said about separating your living space from your working space. The change in environment comes with a changed state of mind, is when you enter your office, you know you're there to work. Not to have Netflix on in the background like you do when you're working in your living room, or to be constantly checking the fridge when you're working in the kitchen, because maybe something new just randomly appeared. That's why, for my next project, I'll be building a backyard office. I'll be documenting the entire thing on this channel, and at the end of it all, I'll be selling it. I'm currently working on a website that will be your best means of contacting me if you're interested, so I'll definitely let you know when that's up. In the meantime, let's get designing. All right, back at the cottage and forced to work outside because indoors is a construction zone as usual. So let's begin. Design is really easy if you first set out your constraints. For this project, we know that the footprint has to be under 108 square feet. It's got to be able to properly manage rain and snow, and because I don't yet know the site of where it will be installed, it has to be both transportable from my house to the client's and from the client's driveway to their backyard. So what does this tell us? Well, for starters, let's look at the footprint. We want to get as close to 108 square feet as possible, but still leave some room as a buffer for construction. I like 12 by 8 since many construction materials come in 4 by 8 sheets, so choosing this layout will allow for less cutting and lower costs. I also like how it's not a perfect square, since I don't want the office to feel like a cubicle. Looking at our next constraint, the easiest way to address this is to not have a flat roof, so we'll get to that later. And lastly, getting it to the client's front yard can be easy. A 12 by 8 shed is thin enough to legally have on a trailer, but getting it to their backyard poses a challenge. Most houses don't have a backyard that's accessible from the street, so the shed will have to be brought in from the side yard, which are typically quite narrow. To solve this problem, I'm going to build the office as a modular structure. That means that the office will have to come apart as 4 walls, a floor, and a roof that will then be reassembled on site. This brings up a few challenges.
Since the structure's walls and roof are coming apart, I'll either have to do the electrical work on site or figure out a way to properly disconnect and reconnect the wiring where the walls and the roof meet. Additionally, the easiest way to ruin a building's thermal performance is to have a break in its air barrier. Naturally, since this is coming apart, there are potential breaks where all pieces meet. Thus, to ensure the office is as energy efficient as possible, I'll need to make sure that there are no gaps in the air barrier where the walls, floor, and roof connect. So now that we've figured out our constraints and how we're going to respond to them, we can work within them and come up with a design. I want the front door to be one of the 12-foot walls, as it's most likely that the opposite, also 12-foot wall, will be placed along one of the back or side edges of the property. We know that we don't want a flat roof, so angling it back will allow the office to open up to the rest of the backyard. One thing that I thought of is that if my client doesn't have space for an office, then they likely don't have a whole lot of space for their tools and garden supplies either. It is for this reason that I'm going to include a micro shed within this structure. Along one of the 8-foot walls, I'll be installing double doors that will open up to a cavity roughly 2 feet deep. This should be ample space to store tools and supplies on either a pegboard or French cleat system. As for the interior, whether or not I build custom furniture will be up to the client. However, in the case where I do, the way I see it, an office has 2 potential layouts. First, let's call it open, where the desk is not against any walls, but instead open to the room. And second, let's call it private, where the desk is up against a wall or a window. At first I thought the more appealing option would be to go with an open layout. Traditionally, this is what a boss's office might look like, and I like the idea of my client feeling like the king or queen of their own workspace. However, I then got thinking as to why this is a layout used by individuals high up in a company, and I realized it's because oftentimes they have others coming to their office and sitting opposite their desk. Given that this project is meant for those working at home, away from everyone else in their company, taking up that much space to allow for in-person meetings that aren't likely going to happen doesn't make much sense. The way things have been going is if those working from home need to have a meeting, they'll simply have a video call with their colleagues. However, I don't want to eliminate the possibility of an in-person meeting, so my solution is somewhere in between. With this layout, the desk space is maximized while still leaving enough room to move around, and the protruding portion of the L desk allows for the potential to have in-person meetings.
And that's it for design. Well, at least for now. Design is a very iterative process and also very collaborative. So if you have any comments or critiques about my current design, I would love to hear them in the comments below. In the next video, we're actually going to get started on building. So I'll see you then. Yeah, I'll see you then. Okay, bye.